Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vermont Law Review's annual symposium. Our 45th volume is covering the legitimacy, legality, and legacy of the 45th presidential administration of the United States. My name is Sarah Galon, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Vermont Law Review. I want to start off by thanking you all for logging in and joining us for our first ever virtual symposium. While we certainly wish that we could all be in person for this event, we believe this platform is the best option in current times to still facilitate a lively discussion. I also want to thank our two symposium editors, Kelsey Schweitzer and Caitlin Feary, for resiliently spearheading this event over the past year during changing circumstances due to COVID. I'd also like to thank our faculty advisor, Professor Catherine Fergozzi, for all of her advice and always unwavering support. Next, I'd like to thank all of the VLS faculty and staff who have helped put this symposium together through soliciting speakers to advertising and everything in between. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Vermont Law Review Journal membership for all of their assistance in putting this symposium together. Over the next two evenings, we will hear speakers on three separate panels: executive powers, environmental legacy, and separation of powers. Each panel will be followed by a question and answer session. So if at any point you have a question for a speaker or a panel, feel free to drop that question in the chat box and it will be relayed to the moderator. Tonight, you will first hear from the executive powers panel. This panel will explore the unitary executive theory, how President Trump pushed the boundaries of the executive power, and whether he went too far. To explore this topic, panelists will discuss President Trump's use of the commander-in-chief role, both domestically and abroad. In addition, the panelists will explore the administration's use and misuse of internal administrative law through the case studies of the invisible border wall and the imperiled independence of administrative law judges. Next, we'll hear from the environmental legacy panel. It's no secret here at Vermont Law School that the Trump administration's policies will have a lasting effect on the environment. This panel discusses some of the tools of that destruction. To explore this topic, panelists will discuss the Environmental Protection Agency over the last 4 years and its lack of enforcement and rollback on rules. Further, it will look at the lasting impacts of the administration's energy dominance policy on the Department of the Interior's mineral leasing programs that will extend for decades, and the use of executive fiat for destruction and conservation. While the next 4 years look to be taking steps in the right environmental direction, it's important that VLS's future environmental lawyers know the legacy they'll be up against. Our volume decided on our symposium theme in January of 2020, a time that almost seems like a lifetime ago at this point. We were pre-pandemic, pre-resurgence of the Black Lives Matter social justice movement, pre-election, and pre-Capitol insurrection. This past year has highlighted the ever-present divides that run through our country, divides that only grew during the 45th administration. Instead of pretending that a new administration magically alleviates all those divides, I hope this symposium can spark an important conversation, because silence is no longer an option. I hope this conversation can touch on what it means to be resilient against anti-democratic forces. A conversation about how to acknowledge past and continuing harm marginalized communities continue to endure in American society. And finally, I hope it can imagine what a path towards a more unified America looks like. And while this is all certainly a tall ask, I truly believe that every movement starts with a conversation. Every change begins with someone with a question. And therefore, I hope this symposium can provide that platform for us all. Thank you all again for attending. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker for what I believe is her very first address since taking her new position. Please join me in welcoming Vermont Law School's new interim president and dean, Beth McCormick.
Thank you, Sarah, for that introduction. I am honored to make my first official welcome at the opening of the Law Review Symposium. I'm grateful to the VLS Law Review and especially our editor-in-chief, Sarah, for sponsoring this symposium, and want to extend a special welcome and thank you to our keynote speaker, Montana Senator Jon Tester. I also want to welcome our distinguished panelists and our Vermont Law School faculty who are moderating the events. Professor Pat Parento, Dean Jennifer Rushlow, and Professor Hillary Hoffman. When I look at the program for this symposium, I see that this event exemplifies so many of the things about Vermont Law School that make me proud to work here. 3 things come to mind today. First, our willingness to engage in controversial discussions. Professor Judith Pace of the University of San Francisco wrote recently how research points to the benefits of high-quality discussion of controversial issues. The benefits include growth in and tolerance for other points of view, increased interest in politics, and increased knowledge about the issues students care about. Whatever your political views are, one of the greatest benefits I have observed over the past 4 years has been the increased engagement and interest in politics and policy. Evidence I have seen in big and small ways, from voter turnout in both national and local elections, to an increase in people running for office for the first time, including some of our alums. And even to my 86-year-old dad, who's watching today's newfound interest in Twitter, so he could be informed about what was happening. This interest and engagement will be, I hope, one of the lasting legacies of the 45th presidency. And because we will be talking about controversial issues today, I want to share with you a quotation by Dr. Cornel West that was shared with me by my colleague and friend, Professor Richard Sala, a panelist on the 430 Executive Powers panel. Whether you are a person of the left, the right, or the center, there are reasonable people of goodwill who do not share your fundamental convictions. I try to remember these words in my daily life and when I encounter a viewpoint that I don't agree with, and I hope you do today as well. The second thing that today's event exemplifies is Vermont Law School's leadership on environmental issues. In particular, I'm looking forward to the Environmental Legacy panel at 6:15 today, moderated by the Dean of our Environmental Program and the Director of the Environmental Law Center, Jenny Rushlow. Vermont Law School has the most comprehensive graduate environmental law and policy programs in the country, and no law school has more environmental classes, clinics, and experts on the faculty than we do. We are in a global climate crisis that requires collaborative and innovative solutions. And we also have an obligation to address the disproportionate impacts that changing climate has on BIPOC and low-income communities. Our Environmental Justice Clinic, Environmental Advocacy Clinic, Energy Clinic, and Food and Agriculture Clinic are some examples of how our faculty are actively engaging in finding solutions and are training students to be the problem solvers of the future. I'm eager to hear their thoughts on the environmental legacy of the 45th president. And third, since the day I joined the Vermont Law School faculty, I've been impressed by our students. Students who live up to our motto of law and policy for the community and the world. Students like Sarah and the other members of Law Review who organize events like this, opening them up to the public and bringing such renowned experts and giants in their fields to our campus in this tiny little town in the Green Mountains virtually this year. One of my favorite things about my job is that every day I have the opportunity to learn something new, to think about issues in a different way. And today and tomorrow, I look forward to doing just that as I learn from our panelists and the discussion the program is sure to generate. So thank you, Law Review. Welcome, Senator Tester, panelists, moderators, students, faculty, and staff, and members of our community. And I will turn things back to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Dean McCormick. Our first panel will begin shortly, so please stick around. We'll get going at around 4:30, so see you all then.